concerning. So I guess I'll begin. The history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. That's a phrase that's been proven incorrect, because the Texas Supreme Court case against the 4 states that they have alleged have conducted electoral malfeasance is totally snowballing into the fault lines of what will effectively be the Second American Civil War. And I think that this will be the case because the Democrats have too much to lose, and so do the Republicans. But I think that the moral right is on the side of the Republicans, because I think that they are right that the means are the things that justify the ends. So if you adhere to the process, then that is how you determine what a good outcome is, whereas the Democrats appear to have the opinion that the good outcome is predetermined and the means are merely a method of obfuscating or denying that. And I think that's backwards. I think that's the wrong philosophy to adopt. But this conflict is essentially putting the Democrats back into their old position of arguing for states' rights. It's a neo-confederacy, if you will. 21 states have now joined Texas in their complaint against the 4 alleged offending states, and a huge neo-confederacy has been assembled by the Democrats. Can we get the map up? So, on the left, you can see how the states ostensibly voted in the 2020 presidential election, and on the right, you can see the states that have joined in the lawsuit either for or against. It's pretty close. It's pretty similar. And those states that were otherwise Republican, but in the last election voted Democrat, like Arizona, still have apparently Republican attorney generals. The divide is obviously partisan. And the source of the obviously partisan divide is philosophical. It's about values. What you define as right and wrong. Now, the Neo-Confederacy is comprised of the District of Columbia, with the states and territories of California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Guam, Hawaii, Illinois.
I think you
Maine,
can.
Maryland,
You should be able to
Minnesota,
pass
Nevada,
this
New Jersey, New Mexico,
with stuff.
New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Washington. They call themselves the Amici or Amici states, which is a legal term. They're effectively giving legal aid and just speaking up in support.
Oh, come on.
What was it? Pennsylvania, Georgia.
What if I don't move?
Wisconsin, Michigan. That's it. And it's really very interesting because they accept no legitimacy in the concerns of Texas, even though I think that there's not enough evidence to show that Texas has legitimate grievances and concerns in this regard. And honestly, it kind of seems like old times. The Democrats, not gonna lie, I'm not impressed with the way that they run their states. I'm certainly not impressed with the way they run their cities, and I think calling them the democratic fiefdoms is not illegitimate, as some of my friends have called them. And as Candace Owens says, black people should lead the democratic plantation once again, and I don't think she's wrong there either. But anyway, this is just the Attorney General confirming more states joining the Republicans, who again seem to have right on their side, and this has not been well accepted by, say, the Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who has outright called Texas seditious in his filing on Thursday. He said, Texas's effort to get this court to pick the next president has no basis in law or in fact. The court should not abide this seditious abuse of the judicial process and should send a clear and unmistakable signal that such abuse must never be replicated. Highly suspicious. Not even, just, you can't say that about the things that are being alleged. There is enough evidence to show, video evidence and sworn witness testimony, that suggests that yes, there was a procedural problem with the way that these elections in these areas were carried out. And it seems this is so cut and dried that even Pennsylvania are filing against themselves. Pennsylvania's House Speaker and Majority Leader filed an amicus curiae brief with the Supreme Court against the state of Pennsylvania and in favour of Texas's lawsuit against the Commonwealth and 3 other states. Quote, the unimpeachability of our elections requires clear procedures of administration so that everyone gets a fair shake. Unfortunately, outside actors have so markedly twisted and gerrymandered the Commonwealth's election code to the point that Amici find it unrecognizable from the laws they have enacted. And he wrote, adding, the state of Texas raised important questions about how this procedural malfeasance affected the 2020 election. I completely agree with that statement. I think there is, and as we've covered in previous podcasts, more than enough evidence to suggest that the Democrats have acted inappropriately, and at the very least, this would be worthy of an investigation. So this is a map of the population of density of the two factions. As you can see, Texas and California being the two big boys on the map, with the flyover states making up the remaining body, Florida, of course, of the Republican cause. The blue states, led by California and New York, the Neo-Confederacy, led by the Democrat-run, deeply Democrat California and New York, with Pennsylvania putting a gun to its own head. I guess we'll see who pulls the trigger first. What? This is something that I am genuinely concerned about. I know that we're making jokes about it and memes here, but this, I think that, you know, if things do go as it looks to me like these things are going, I say this as just a student of history, a big fan of reading about revolutions and the causes of revolutions, and civil wars all through history in various different kinds of states. This, to me, seems like an irreconcilable problem, because, and we'll talk about this as we go into the Hunter Biden story, I think the Democratic Party is so riddled with corruption that so many people have too much to lose and would lose it all that it will come down to war. I don't think that they'll accept the people who have been behind all of this being put behind bars. Anyway, so the Texas Attorney General went on should we go see Stephen Crowder clip rather than the Fox News clip? Just a fellow content creator. He went on Stephen Crowder's show, and this is what he said.
All right, here we go. Why should citizens want their AGs to join the fight?
Because I think that they are being disenfranchised. If your state followed state law and produced election results that were based on state law as required by the U.S. Constitution, and other states said, we're not going to follow those constitutional requirements, we're not going to follow our state law, and as a result, we don't really know, we can't verify whether any of these 2.5 million ballots mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania are real. Well, that's a problem for my state, because my state is following the law, and now we've got all these states we don't know what the real result is, and it affects the outcome of the election, and that affects my state.
Yeah, it affects a federal election. You have states changing laws.
Oh my God.
Federal election.
So the question is the United States a united country, really? And again, just like before, the Democrats saying, well, actually, can we just have some special laws? You can ban slavery in the Republican areas if you want, if you feel so strongly about being against slavery and, you know, freeing black people from bondage. But we'd like to keep ours because, you know, it's beneficial for us, it's our plantation. And now we're back to them saying, well, you can have honest and uncorrupted elections if you Republicans want, but we would like to be able to fix our own elections if that's okay with you. Needless to say, I think the Republicans cannot allow some certain areas of the country run by the Democrats to essentially descend into banana republics and still think that the rest of the country can function normally. This political corruption will spread if it is normalized, which it appears to be at this point, and if it's allowed to continue. It's unacceptable. It is just unacceptable that they can say, well, it's okay for us. If, as the Attorney General there says, if it is meant to be a consistent rule set by the Constitution for the entire country, then they have to abide by it. You can't just say, well, it's okay for these four blue states to do it. I think that what they are doing is illegitimate.
Wrong. Loving the states' rights. Right, very true.
It's literally, how dare you interfere with us being corrupt in our elections?
Our dead people are allowed to vote, damn you.
Yeah. I mean, how is it not the same thing?
I ain't got nothing to say. It's just, I am kind of worried.
Yeah.
Like, I think you are right. I don't know if it'll end up in war, though. Maybe long-term thinking. But I mean, what do you think will happen? Let's say Trump refuses to give concessions. Go, go, go! Well,
the Democrats and the media have been priming for the last 4 years. Trump is a dictator. He's not going to relinquish power. And that he is going to do something illegitimate in order to make it Britain over the United States. Not that he is much of a dictator by any measure, but it doesn't matter. This is the narrative, and so there are definitely going to be millions of people who buy into the president who will believe that Donald Trump is committing some kind of Caesarean coup in the United States if the Texan side wins this lawsuit. And it seems to me, as an outsider who has no legal expertise in this regard whatsoever, but just as a layman reading the documents, reading the allegations, looking at the evidence independently that we have covered on this podcast in previous episodes, if you'd like to just go back and find it, you can find episodes labelled election updates where we cover all of these things.
You know who you're messing with?
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, it just looks like on paper, from a constitutionalist perspective, that the Democrats are in the wrong and that the Republicans are in the right, and if you care about the process, if you care about the legal methods, then the Democrats are effectively, they have lied. And I say the Democrats to mean the faction, the cathedral of the Democrats. And we'll talk more about this in the Hunter Biden, because it's manifestly obvious how they are working to defend the left-wing interests against the right-wing interests. But I just don't see how an independent observer could know what has happened and come to the conclusion the Democrats have done it wrong. But like I said, the followers of the Democrats are going to think that Trump is an unjust tyrannical dictator, even though he's done nothing unconstitutional. All of this is completely within the realms of the Constitution, all of it. And, you know, I mean, I listen to lots of other Republican podcasters, I listen to lots of left-wing podcasters, and the left-wing podcasters are never really addressing the meat of what the Republicans are claiming, like the actual allegations, like, you know, keeping poll watchers out and allowing the mail-in votes to be counted like a week after the election and things like this. Things that are just, you know, the Republicans are citing like Georgia state law, you know, and Pennsylvania state law, and saying, look, this says you can't do this says you can't do that. It's crystal clear. They're never addressing those things. And I genuinely think that the Republicans are in the right, and I genuinely think that the Democrats won't back down.
They can't address any of the things, because to address them would to mean that it's not an all, you know, a big conspiracy theory, as they say, which is
and
not going to go.
I mean, Josh Shapiro just dismissed it. No, it wasn't Josh Shapiro, but yesterday we covered how one lawyer, legal professor from California, said it's garbage, dangerous garbage, but garbage. It's like, but that's not addressing the points. Tell us why. You know, tell us what the detail is.
But the point I was trying to get at was, if let's say they lose this lawsuit and the rest of them, and it's Joe Biden sworn in, and Trump refuses to give a concession speech, I can't imagine there being any massive uproar from the Conservatives in an illegal or physical way. I can imagine a lot of Tea Party stuff. I can imagine a lot of mass protests, things like this. But if it's the other way around, I think you're right, but not war, but more just massive expansion of the current terrorism that's already going on in the United States. So the left-wing groups that are currently throwing Molotovs at police, them going up to their state legislatures and attacking them, I can't imagine that's outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but this will expand to people like Ted Weeder saying we don't recognise the authority of the very left-wing mayor of Portland.
I don't think he did already, did he? I mean, that's why he was letting terrorism go on in the state.
He may well have, but I don't think he's repudiated Trump's authority. But he's been very difficult about the thing and said that, look, I don't need your help in this sort of thing. But I think there are some Democrats who are loopy enough to come out and formally object and say we're not going to take Trump's authority from the federal government. And then you're in a safe.
AOC's going to say that.
Yeah, I mean these areas already have enough breakaway locations, such as the Red House or something, the newest one that was reported on lowseats.com by Josh, which is another left-wing that tries to declare itself not part of the United States, like the George Floyd autonomous Capitol Hill autonomous zone. And this just keeps happening. It's just a feature of left-wing politics at this point. And I think that the people like Ted Wheeler, who tried to join in with in all of the left-wing movements, will find themselves in a position where their own activists won't allow them to continue, and so they have to essentially come to the decision that this is it, you know. And they may well themselves genuinely believe, because of the media diet that they have. And politicians and all the media pundits and all this sort of thing, they're not immune to the same sort of social media bubble effects that affect the rest of us, which is why I so consistently say, watch from both sides. You have to watch from both sides, and even now, because otherwise you are going to turn into a one-sided partisan. And so it is imperative that you watch people that you don't enjoy. At least, people that you find it to be credible and informed. Sorry about the siren. Yeah, damn it, siren.
It's a meme in the chat.
Yeah, I know. Why is it every time about 1 o'clock in the afternoon that there are people out
Someone
making
commits a
fun?
crime.
Yeah. Oh, well, someone gets into an accident. But anyway, so I think that they will have a strength of belief they feel is justified, but also I think they're aware that there is a kind of underlying tension about the corruption that has been going on in the Democratic Party that is now just all public. That they realise that it's all or nothing. It is going to be all or nothing. And I mean, hopefully my prediction is wrong. Right? I'm hoping that this prediction is just deeply flawed. There were a bunch of other factors I hadn't included in my
I mean, even then, your best case scenario would still be an escalation of Antifa terrorism.
Yeah, best case scenario. Yeah, exactly. Even if there aren't mayors and governors across the country who reject Donald Trump enough to essentially secede from the United States. Again, history repeating itself. Even if there aren't enough for them to start doing that, yeah, as you say, the activists are going to be setting the world on fire. All of these democratic cities are going to get burned down again. But yeah, I'm sorry. It's not going to be Republican cities that get burned down.
I know. I was just thinking of a joke. Like, it's just endless, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's burn it down. Let's burn it down again.
Well, it's just their politics. It's just part of their politics. Property is not important. The lives of individual people, as if you can separate the two. Property belongs to individuals. You're affecting people's lives. But the Democrats, obviously being essentially led by the nose by communists, don't recognise the value of property at all. But anyway.
The only example on the right that's even considered an equivalent,
What?
I don't think it is the Proud Boys. Compared to the Antifa, people
Proud Boys aren't going to go to the
if Joe Biden wins and Trump refuses to give a concession speech, I don't think the Proud Boys are going to burn down Texas.
No, I don't think so. I think it's ridiculous.
But,
There we go. But anyway,
yeah, that's what's going on there.
so what do you think of that, folks?
Where did we leave off?
Harding, do you think if this turns violent, it could spill into other Western nations which are suffering from similar political, cultural divide as foreign factions seek to intervene, i.e. China and lesser groups like momentum? Yes, it'd be very surprising if foreign actors didn't join in. I mean, China will definitely fund the Democrats. There is no question of it. China will definitely want, in the same way that the Brits, we funded the Democrats initially in the Civil War because obviously we wanted the Republicans to lose and break up the United States because that would be advantageous for Britain in the world. China will do the same with the Democrats. It would be advantageous for them on the global stage if the United States successfully splits. If the Democrats lose and the Republicans can reconquer areas of the United States, then that's bad for China. Very bad.
I don't want to dwell on this too much because it's sort of a bit of a semantic point. But you're making it out like to be a full-scale civil war, tanks, different arms of the military fighting. Yeah. I just don't buy that. I can buy absolute...
It's happened dozens of times.
I can imagine an escalation in, leftist terrorism, huge amounts of democratic activists being radicalized and carrying out acts of terrorism, but I can't imagine the branches of the military revolting.
Why?
I don't think the US branches of the military, number one, are particularly sympathetic to the rebel cause, but also the fact that they are bound by the United States government, and I don't
But
think...
if they don't recognise it as a legitimate government and they think that it's been taken over by Hitler, they would revolt.
Those aren't the people in the US military, surely. Those are the people in the
wouldn't.
Democratic Party.
Yes, but they don't assume that these institutions are not connected. They are connected, and the people in them also sometimes vote Democrats. Some of them vote Democrats, some of them vote, most of them vote Republican. But military units
We do get
stationed...
military terrorists. I mean, there was one guy a while back, so I'll probably get some of the information on. But I think he ended up shooting up a bunch of people at his barracks in some political attack. I mean, this happens.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it can't, but I don't think it'll be in 5 branches of the military. It'll be, maybe 2% of people get radicalized and become terrorists.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, if it I can't say exactly what's going to happen. But like, I mean, that will happen. I think there will be individuals who radicalize and become terrorists. I think we're already seeing that now.
Yeah, that's already happening. It's just I'm saying there'll be an escalation.
But no, if California declares itself, and New York declares itself, and Texas then, essentially declares itself a republic,